Today is once again about clarity. Do you have clarity in your life? And I know that I've been talking a lot about clarity, but there is so much to share about clarity because we can think and believe that we have clarity in our lives, but do we really? Or are we aware we don't have clarity at all, but we just don't know where to start, where to begin, or how to continue on? So I have been doing a number of challenges in the last couple of years to do with clarity, and each year somehow there is a difference in the emphasis on what's important. So years ago, I started doing my first clarity challenges when I got back from the US. Every time I would come back, I realized, oh, everything is organized in the hotel room, even when I was with a friend. And then when I'm on my own, it's like, okay, why can't it be the same over here as it is over there? And what I realized is when I'm somewhere temporarily, then you don't have all the clutter from memories, administration, letters, whatever it is. Um, you have to clean up because at some point you will leave, right? I mean, everything fits in the suitcase, it comes out of the suitcase, and it gets back into the suitcase. And the same was true for when I was working. In the beginning, when I used to work, we would have a desk and you would leave all your stuff on there. And then at some point, they started rotating those same workplaces, which I hated, by the way. Not so much because I couldn't put my stuff on there, but I didn't like the fact that my table would get readjusted, and often I needed a different keyboard and other settings. And well, when people would readjust their chair, then mine, of course, would be not working for me anymore. But the cool thing was that you got in and you had basically had to do everything electronically. So yes, of course, I would print out certain things, and there would be a number of closets where you could actually store some things, and there were some lockers. So the closets were more for like contracts, for instance, that everybody had to have access to. As for the storage lockers, of course, those were for our own personal stuff. And yes, a number of times we would also put our work in there too. Now, being here, being my own boss, in the beginning, I would get people to come over. I would treat them over here, being a therapist and later also being a coach and a counselor. It was a whole different ball game, especially when also combining it with giving massages. I was a sports masseuse. It made sense that people would come over, and this was focused solely on that. And at some point, things changed. And I remember that I changed this location. I never really refer to it as my office building. I used to call it my practice because, well, that seemed to make sense. I was doing my stuff right here. But then at some point, when I started to go see other people, I was like, well, I'm not sure if that's the right word anymore. And I wanted to change it to studio. And I tried that for a while, but somehow it didn't stick. And I remember that a couple of years ago, I started making all these changes. So on the other side of the wall, there was actually a space which was sort of, I decorated in such a way that I could actually do podcasts over there and other stuff. And well, it didn't sit really well with me because it's part of the hallway, which means that it's kind of open. And when it's cold, it's cold. Over here, it's a secluded space. So when I turn on the heating, it's there. And when I turn on the heating over there, well, it leads directly to the front door. So, you know, that doesn't make much sense. So over here in the Netherlands, it's not like you open your front door and then you're inside the living room. I'm not entirely sure what it's like in company buildings, but I think it can be related to company buildings. But anyway, I was setting it up, and I remember buying all this stuff to make it the best way possible. And then, of course, my mom passed away, and the house had to be sold. And all of a sudden, all this stuff came here. And with it, the access to that part of the studio, which I already considered too cold, was blocked. Didn't really seem to matter because I didn't use it that much, because I'm so used to working here behind this place. So it's actually a bar table. It's quite high. I like to sit on the bar stool. And well, so like I said, I didn't really miss it, but it wasn't convenient either, because I do have a lot of equipment and I'm not really able to use it. So that's not a good thing. So, like I said, whenever I got back, I wanted to change things. I did my clarity challenges and still things didn't work out. This last year, I've been talking about FOMO, fear of missing out. When I give training, I also talk about the distractions, about what's that one thing that you are looking for that's keeping you distracted from what actually matters. I've got a certain term for it. I'll get back to that term in a little bit. But it's like very distracting, and instead of focusing on what really matters, it's like, oh, I got to have that one. I have to have that one thing. And well, I guess that the last couple of months for me have been about dealing with the whole fear of missing out, but also of letting go of all the emotional ties. And well, it cost me quite some time. But what I'm more aware of than ever is I am my own person. And by the time that I'll be leaving, my stuff isn't interesting for anyone else. What matters to me is in my heart and it is in my mind. And when I'm no longer around, of course, I want there to be a legacy, which should be there through the internet. But it's not like people should have to be here around me and use my notes and use my pictures and all that stuff. Although I do like to share, pictures about where I've been and things that I've done. But yes, we have the internet nowadays, so let's take advantage of this whole new day and age with the internet. Now, as you can tell, I have been dealing with a cold. I still have a low voice, so I do not know how long I can actually go on with this live, but I'm going to give it a try. It's what I've learned is that it's not good to postpone things. It's just not good at all. So we need to focus on what matters right now. And because I haven't been feeling all too good, I noticed that it was harder to actually be posting like every day. So on average, I've still posted on Instagram every day. But the funny thing is, I started doing this on December 1st. And we're almost there again, right? December 1st, it's almost a year. And I realized I was closer than ever to giving it up. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening here? I've been doing it for almost a year. I've been so proud of myself. And then I would stop doing it because I feel a little bit under the weather. Well, that's not the right thing to do. So here I am, and here we are going. Now, I posted a number of things this week, and they were inspired by different events. So one of the things was I wanted to reach out to a long-term friend. He started as a client when I started my practice. He saw my ad in a local newspaper, and well, he could use a massage. So back then he was capable of driving really easily. So, he would come over, and there was a lot going on in his life. He was back then still married to a woman he wanted to take care of, but she was suffering from Alzheimer's, and it was hard. And he needed that distraction to be able to do his own thing. Now, due to circumstances, I lost contact with them, but through others, I always knew, like, oh yeah, he's around. And at some point, I didn't hear that he was showing up at the other people. So I was like, is everything okay still? So I decided to send him a message. I did. And well, we met up last Sunday, and that was kind of cool. And we talked about a lot of things. And it was good to see one another again. It was very good to see one another again. And that's why I said, reach out to people when you still have the chance. I mean, he is 89 years old, and you don't know how long he's got. And even though they say that the average lifespan is getting longer, personally, I don't buy it at the moment. I see too many people who die actually in their 50s and in the 60s, cancer and everything, heart problems. And I do believe there's a lot of pressure nowadays, and it's kind of hard to actually relax. So people expect a lot of us. And well, back in the days, you would reach out to other people. I mean, there wasn't the internet. So you would go and see and visit friends, and you would be focused on something. Now, fast forwarding to today, a friend of mine helped me out. So I usually come and visit her because it's easier since she has 2 kids. And I told her that this place needed some cleaning up. Now, of course, there were also some other circumstances why it needed cleaning up. One had to do with fire insurance. And it was like, when I realized that because of my actions, the whole surrounding, so we are part of an organization here, which has a mutual fire insurance. I was like, hey, but that's not good. I didn't know that it actually was discontinued until I would have cleaned up. I had no clue about that, because if I had known, I would have taken action way quicker. And there's a big difference between doing it for myself and for others. And of course, I should be doing it for myself, but sometimes we need a little outside push to actually get going. Now, this friend, that's what I mean. This friend knew about it. And knowing that people would come over, I already started organizing things and, going through things. And, you know, I can see in my mind in phases where things have changed. Probably I have some pictures, especially with playing Pokemon. You get these pictures of a Pokemon, your buddy, and you take a snapshot, and he's actually, or she's, it's located in front of what's going on. So I would be able to see on the pictures what's in the background. And well, that's been changing. So that's actually kind of cool. So for the first time in years, I dare to ask for outside help. I asked my husband, but well, he had to do his own thing, didn't have the time for it. And so I pretty much felt left alone. My brother, I don't know, we don't see one another that often. And when he comes, he's always a bit in a hurry. We do meet up every now and then because he actually works here in the area. It's just that he's got his own family, and having his own family, he, he wants to be back at a certain time. And he's also got sort of like a rigid schedule, which is good for him. So during the summertime, we usually meet up, and afterwards, we don't. So there was no family I could turn to anymore to ask for help. So that basically left friends. And kind of, and honestly, I was a little bit too embarrassed to actually have people come over here because, well, it wasn't a place where you could sit down anymore. I mean, in the past, two relaxed chairs, that was about it. There was the massage table, and that's it, because it was a place where I would treat people. But nowadays, it had turned into a place where I could be me, I could do my own thing. And well, it was not meant to invite others here. I really had to reinvent my life in the last decade, which was a huge result of not being able to stand on 2 feet. And not being able to stand on 2 feet meant that cooking was a hassle, cleaning was a hassle. And then, of course, with everything going on with the health insurance, you can do the math. Now, taking into consideration that at some point there was a lot of space being used to actually get the stuff from my parents here, then, well, you can have an idea of what was going on, and what to a degree is still going on. Now, the good news is, with the friends coming over, I literally said, I need help. And what we did for the last couple of months is I would work on my Lego, I would sort it out, I would put stuff on Marketplace to sell it, and other stuff that I had used, I was like, okay, these are bits and pieces that I want to keep. And as for all else, if your kids can use it, then please do. So their kids, they love me because, I bring them tons of Lego. Now, it's not my goal to keep buying Lego. So whereas last year and the year before, I would still go to the Lego stores, I hardly do so anymore. At some point, you've seen it all, although they have some very cute things and interesting things. And I've started building my own stuff. So at this moment, one of the things that I wanted to do was build a firehouse, which is based on the Backdraft firehouse. So that's an actual firehouse that's still in existence. It's an old building in Chicago. And I was like, well, I want that one. So I'm looking for all the bits and pieces to build that one. But it's also linked to sort of like a stage, which is going to be at the back. So people can actually go there, but then, miniature, to watch their live and see what happened in the past and in present and what's going on now. So that's something that I have in mind, which would be so cool if I can get to realize that a place where people can come to, where they get their own song, so they can remember their coaching trip and their decisions that they made, and hence continue on with the change. Now, of course, I don't want this in miniature in Lego. I want it in real life. But it's kind of cool to, instead of using a 2D dream board, to actually see it as a 3D dream board. And well, there was a lot going on. I saw a lot of things to do with musicians. And well, for those who know, I do play music myself. So it seemed kind of fitting. Now, last week, well, not only last week, the last month, I got to turn back to listening to music from the 80s and also the updated versions, as in what they recorded afterwards, those groups. And well, I probably have shared with you a thing or two about it. But one of the things that really inspired me, or one of the people who really inspired me, were the guitarist and the singer from a band called the Scorpions. Now, the band itself was, well, it started like 59 years ago. So July 5th next year, it's going to be 60 years. Can you imagine that? That's older than I am. So I've never seen them live, because when they were still performing, on smaller stages, I was still a teenager, and then I lost sort of track of time. But seeing them, and I shared a little something about that last week, when looking at Instagram and seeing the stuff that's going on in the 80s and the 90s, which they now post on Instagram frequently, I was like, hey, what's going on? What are they doing? And I was surprised by how vivid they still are, how alive and how enthusiastic. Of course, you can see that age does take its toll, especially when it comes to the singer. But, still running around and all that stuff. So I've been listening to interviews, and then to my surprise, I learned that the one who actually started the Scorpions is into meditation and a whole bunch of other things. Now, this led to two things. One, someone was trying to scam me, and well, they sort of fooled me for a little while, as in I thought I was actually talking to the real person, but then at some point I was like, no, something is not adding up. But the usual signs of being scammed were missing, and that's why I didn't realize it. So normally when you get scammed, it's like they contact you like every day, and there's very bad spelling, and the word trust me drops by like in the first minute. It's like, hi beautiful, and you didn't expect this, but it was nothing of that sort. So that's why I didn't notice it at first. But apart from that, I actually, when the whole scamming part was over, so no, I didn't pay any money. When I realized that they started to ask for money, and they changed certain things what I asked for, I was like, I did this is weird. So it started out with the idea of an interview. So it would be really cool to do that interview one day, and who knows, when we talk about manifestations, you never know. As for watching it, it was like, okay, I didn't know this. For me, it was a German band, And I grew up with the German band. There was one song in particular that I really loved, and I always wanted to listen to it. But that was about it. I would, back in the days, we had a vinyl library. Yes, we did. So they would lend you those records. And yeah, I had one of those records too, Worldwide Live. It was amazing to look at. And I was like, yeah, it great album. But like I also explained to you on a number of occasions, when the 90s started, everything changed, especially since there was grunge, and I lost interest in music. And nowadays I understand it's actually not that weird that I said so, because a lot of bands didn't know how to deal with that new direction. So, but getting back to the whole scamming thing, but also the the interviews I've been watching, I found out that meditation was key, focus was key, and I realized the importance of creativity. So I've talked a lot about creativity lately. And one of the things that I've been doing is I've been listening to a lot of music lately, also before falling asleep, but also to use it to get into a certain state of mind. So they have some nice acoustic ballads out there. One of them is called Send Me an Angel. And that gets me into this vibe that really is like, okay, calming down, that's good. That's a great way to actually start up this life. Well, before I did the live, I was in between my friends helping me out to organize some stuff, and I'll get back to that. And the other thing was, I was actually playing drums along to their music. And what I regret is that they had a drummer for a while, for about 21 years, and he's no longer alive. He died at the beginning of this year. So I'll never see him live. It's the way it is. Fortunately, a lot has been documented, so that's nice. And what I found out this week was that my other favorite drummer, Eric Carr, who really has inspired me from an early age on, as young as 12, as I can remember, he, well, there's a lot of stuff coming out um, as well. There were interviews actually there, and they take these little snippets of interviews and they post them on YouTube. So that's actually kind of cool. So I used to have these dreams about walking outside at some point, and then I would be like in a shopping mall, and I could pretty much still spell out how to get there to that one location where they would have these records and CDs and t-shirts, including from Eric Carr. And then all of a sudden, Bruce Kulick made it true. And now, like once a year, we get this stuff from Eric Carr. And I'm so happy that he actually does so. It's because the guy inspired me. And, well, it's, it's weird when someone has inspired you so much, and then at some point you're older than the guy was when he passed on. But it's nice that in this day and age they've basically stored everything, and, well, they are making it known to the public. So there's a big thank you to Bruce Kulick and his sister, Bruce Kulick, and his sister Loretta Carr, who both are two people making sure that Eric Carr's legacy is still out there. Now, playing drums today, I was listening to music when I was driving over. It was raining, so normally I get on my bike, and this time I was like, no, I'm going to get in the car. And, well, I was still listening to music. I got behind the kit, and I was like, okay, I'm going to play along on the drums. And it was kind of funny because at some point I decided to watch a YouTube video. I put it on one of the kits, on the drum, not on the kit, on one of the toms, because I wanted to listen to the music. And it was kind of funny to actually see what they were doing. And there are some pretty good recordings where you can actually see what's going on with the drummer. You know, back in the days, they also always forgot the drummer. So it's nice to actually be able to see that. And in their editing, there's so much going on. I can only say I applaud them for the work that they do. And especially for the people who've edited this and for them making sure that everyone is included. So that's really nice. And it felt good. It felt good to be playing along. You know, back in the days, I used to do it, and then I would play along with, for instance, Motley Crue, and I would be like, okay, it's like I'm on stage there, and I'm looking at the crowd. And you know, at some point, my stereo actually didn't work anymore. The CD player didn't work anymore, and well, it didn't work really well to listen to music in another way. But today, it worked really well. So it was nice to be inspired, and then you know, playing along, learning the songs, but then from a drummer's perspective, which is a good thing because we need new in our lives. And why do we need new? We need new to develop the neural pathways there up there in our brain and to keep on going. So change is good. I don't like change necessarily, but change is good. Now afterwards, I did go and practice speed more. So double bass drum, both hands on the snare, which is a good thing for my physique. So it really helps me. But it was nice to actually experience that combination of literally being creative and, on the other hand, doing the exercises. So afterwards, I actually fell asleep. I started doing some Spanish and, well, I dozed off. I guess that playing drums had taken its toll, and especially what I'd done before. So, what I'd done before was that friend I talked about. When I asked her for help, she said, yes, I'm going to help you out. And she did. So, she said, what are you doing on Friday? And she said, well, you know what? Um, my parents are taking care of the kids. So after work, I'm going to drop by and we are going to do something. And so she did. And what I knew for a while now is, and some people don't have the patience for this, is I just need to be able to say, what am I going to do with this? And especially when it comes to the emotional stuff. So there were all these little elephants here in the windowsill. Some were broken because I'm kind of clumsy. Well, kind of make it rather clumsy. And well, I was looking at it and I was like, well, you know, that was my parents' legacy, but it's not my thing. I mean, at some point, somehow my mother got to collect elephants. I think other people were collecting horses and she had elephants. And I said, it's expensive stuff. So you want to wrap it up in a kitchen towel, the paper, making sure that it's secure when it goes to other places. But she knows where this stuff needs to go to. That's the thing when you have two kids. She knows who to talk to, where to talk to, and all the other stuff. So having sorted through things myself for a while now, I also knew that a number of the notes that I'd been writing down, handouts I'd made, you know, I print them, I write something down, and everything is basically electronically stored. So I don't necessarily need to have it printed out, paperless office. It's, you know, this day and age, it's normal. And like I said, it's something that I learned to do when I was still working for a boss and we had to move around constantly because, well, you didn't have your own workspace anymore. So whereas I was from, I need to keep everything, and look back, I'm like, no, I do have my notebooks. I do write a lot of stuff in there, and I do hold on to the notebooks so I can actually look back. But on the other hand, a lot of things have changed, especially in the last decade. I mean, with IT going on, with artificial intelligence, with people scrolling and swiping, having a low attention span. The things that we used to do and which were normal are no longer the standard anymore. So we have to change with it. So when she was here, we not only focused on the things which weren't mine anymore, and by doing these lives in the last couple of, well, I've almost been doing it for over a year, but by talking about it, I also became aware that, especially when we talked about the clarity, and I think about like a month ago, I was like, yeah, but their legacy and what they like, that's not necessarily my thing and my legacy. Growing up, I always said, it's nice, the whole Indonesian culture and looking at Chinese and Japanese things, but it's not my thing to have that around me. I've got a totally different style. And then all of a sudden, when they passed away, both of them were gone. There, I had adopted all that stuff, and I was like, it's still not my thing. So what I've been doing basically is reinventing myself, and it's taken me a while because of not being able to do what I was capable of doing. But yes, it's still happening. I'm still there. I'm still focused on what I want to do. And talking to others during my group coaching training this week, I sort of got a little distracted. And I think I also talked about it like last week on my Friday Night Live, that I got distracted, like, hey, but what's important to me? Of course, it's about speaking up and speaking out. But the one thing that I really want is to create a ripple effect. And I want people to come over to a place where they can actually experience in full force what it's like to be coached, and also do a bunch of creative stuff in the process. And yes, music and photography and videos are a very huge part of all of that. So, getting back to this, when she was here, I said, okay, I'm going to hand you this because I don't think I need it anymore, but I need you to throw it away. That was the last bit that I needed, because it was hard for me to actually get rid of it myself. But knowing that she would make sure that it would get to a good place, it made all the difference. And that was actually kind of cool. And that was the help that I needed. So at some point, we were like sitting down. We had ordered in some Pokeballs. I love me some Pokeballs. And so I told her, okay, this is what I need help with still, and that's where I need help with. And at first, when we left, she had to go back. I had to go and play drums. So unfortunately, I'm only capable of doing it once a week when the fellow people living in the house are gone, because one of the persons cannot stand the vibrations. It literally creates a lot of pain for her. So with them gone, I was like, okay, I'm going to the house. You go back to your kids. And then when I got back, that's when I realized, like, oh. And in my mind's eye, I could actually see what had been there. So certain things are still around, which I still need to sort out myself. And one of the things that we agreed upon a while ago was I'm just going to let you know every day what I've been doing. It was primarily related to the business, but I guess it can also be expanded to making sure that everything here is back in order again. And when we talk about the business, let's be fair. I wanted this to be a studio, and it never really happened. I was sort of in the process, and then it stopped again, and then it started again, and then it stopped again. And now getting back to what I talked about, watching those interviews, that one person, so his name is Rudolf Schenker, he talked about focusing on one thing specifically. And well, Brendan Burchard gave his training recently too. So if you followed me, then you know I talk a lot about Brendan Burchard. He absolutely is my role model for a while now, as in for over a decade. And he always puts the emphasis on simplify things, get back to what needs to be done. And when things don't work, people usually go and start doing other things. And that's one of the things that he actually says, don't do that, get better at what you do. Have you tried it all? So those two visions combined, I realized, yeah, that's me, being easily distracted. And I realized that one of the things that I'd been missing, and I've also talked about that for a while now, is getting in the flow, getting in the momentum. So normally I would go to Starbucks and I would sit somewhere. But during COVID, of course, we couldn't go to Starbucks, and then Starbucks reopened again. And then, everything seemed to close earlier. I mean, COVID has left such a dent into, well, when it comes to concerts and being able to go out for dinner, all those things, the recreational things, they're gone or they're severely diminished. And that's a shame. That's really a shame. So the things that I used to do no longer work for me. Now, what I did know from that time is I can basically live from my backpack. I always say I only need 1 square meter, and then I get my things done, which was also the pitfall because since I only needed 1 square meter, it was easily to put all the stuff around me and not being bothered by it because I didn't need that much space. But now that I'm slowly regaining my space, it's actually kind of nice. And with my friend being here today, you talked about a lot of things like, okay, what am I keeping here? What am I going to get rid of? What do I actually need here? And the reinventing myself and actually getting this place back to a studio, it's actually kind of cool because it helps me to see the bigger picture of what it is that I want to do and get out there. And I'm looking forward to that day that actually the background is going to be, I don't know, probably all flashy and everything. I like some good gadgets, but it's all related to light and all that stuff too. And, we'll see how it's going to end up in a couple of months. But the mere fact that I'm not doing it really feels good. Now, I do have to say that equipment has improved so much that fortunately I can do a lot of things without an external microphone. It's, the quality has improved so much. Life has become so much easier when it comes to wanting to be a vlogger and getting stuff out there. But, I want more. As a coach, I am interested in what makes people tick. And I want to share their story with the world. I don't want to just share my story. I want to get people inspired by other people's stories too. So, and it's good for people to listen to multiple people, because that way they are more aware of what really matters. Because if you hear it from multiple people, then at some point it will sink in. Might take a while, might take a decade, might take over a decade, but at some point it will sink in. So that's a good thing. Now, going back to the whole scamming thing, this was one of those things that threw me off base again. Why? Because, well, during my group coaching training, I had posted this video related to the whole scamming, and what I wanted to say was that people expected me to actually be very disappointed, because, well, the person who was supposed to be the real person wasn't the real person. But actually I was relieved, because I don't like being put on the naughty corner, in the naughty corner, on the naughty step, and I felt like I had been treated that way. So for me, the relief was huge when it was like, okay, that's not the real person. Instead, I've been looking at all these interviews and other stuff, and I really learned a lot of stuff from it. And I was like, okay, I need to change some things. Now, there was sort of still a bit of confusion and distraction, because on one hand, I wanted to really work on getting the challenge out there, but it's going to start this Monday. I'll tell you, it's going to start this Monday, and then it's going to lead up to Black Friday. And on the other hand, of course, I had to remove all the clutter here, the stuff related to the emotional stuff, the fear of missing out, and the shiny objects. So basically, fear of missing out, shiny objects are related. So it's about that one thing that you're like, ooh, I need to have that one. And you get distracted. So for those who wonder about shiny objects, the best example is, and because then it shows the well, you can say the relevance of it. So a number of people do therapeutic shopping. Why? Because you instantly feel good. It's just like eating food. Most of the time people instantly feel good. Not everyone, but just most of the time people do. It's instant satisfaction, and then you get back, and then, price tags are still attached to the clothes and to other stuff. And the question is, of course, do you need it? Do you use it even? And, well, that's why shiny objects are so nice, but they are not necessarily very useful. Now, the fear of missing out is related to literally missing out on things back in the days, which has its influence on mindsets and how we act nowadays when we are older. So when I did group coaching training, there was a reference to that video when I talked about being scammed and yet not being that affected by it. I mean, what I've been affected by is that I was actually like, oh, those guys are 76, the two oldest one. And, I was very impressed by that. Actually, I got to see Tom Jones perform twice, which was kind of healing when my mom had passed, because he was around that age too. My mom was 88, close to 89 when she passed away a couple of years ago. And the way that it happened really, it hit me kind of hard. It struck a nerve on my end, because she was less and less capable of doing certain things. And that's why I applauded that there are people out there who actually show known people who are dealing with certain diseases, limiting diseases, whether it has to do with the mind, like for instance, when it comes to Bruce Willis, or when it comes to the body, like for instance, Michael J. Fox. And we see that the people are still worth so much, and their influence and their legacy isn't changed. Actually, it continues on. Um, Take someone like, if I say it correctly, Christopher Reeve. He used to be Superman. And then at some point, he became paralyzed from the neck down. And he still was acting. He still did. So, yeah, you can still leave a legacy even when things have changed. Now, getting back to the group coaching training, what I did know is there are people out there who feel, well, they don't want to talk about it because they feel embarrassed. But what I actually heard went way beyond embarrassment and not being able to talk about it or willing to talk about it. So I know there are so many people who have been dealing with scammers, and yet so few people actually talk about it because, well, we can't do that because there must be something wrong with us that it happened. Whereas if we would talk about it more, we could warn on one another. But anyway, one of the stories I actually heard was of someone who had opted out and no longer wanted to be around because of that same embarrassment. And I can understand that when everything has been taken from you, well, you can talk about when that it's taken from you when we're talking about identity theft. But when we talk about you willingly giving money, that of course is a whole different ballgame. But a lot of money had been put aside for some special things, special places, a piece of property to buy, go to some place special. And then because of the shiny person, in this case, I can't say object when we're talking about people, they suddenly decided to change their priorities and say, okay, well, I want to meet this person because that person has had a huge impact on my life. Let's pay the money. Now, one of the things that I always say is when they actually ask for money because they should need it, well, let's face it, when people are really famous, they don't need it. They can get their money elsewhere. But yes, I do understand that people can be conflicted by it. And, well, like I said, fear of missing out. If I don't do it, what's going to happen? All those kind of things. So urgency is being met. And, well, that's what they do really well. It's like uh, a mind bleep where they sort of pull the strings in such a way that you actually are like, oh, I need to do it and I need to do it now. And, well, myself, having dealt with certain things which were no longer optional, so having missed out on a lot of things when growing up, I was like, okay, I don't want to happen that again to me ever again. So I guess that, in the last decade or something, last 15 years, I made up for a lot of it. So that's good. So the fear of missing out has slowly subsided a little bit. I've also become my own person more and more. I've become more and more authentic. So that's a good thing. And so for me, having to do this one time thing, I think already I've done a lot of things which makes life a lot sweeter. But getting back to the people who feel really embarrassed and feel like I can't go on like this anymore, those are the people who had like a certain dream and then there was nothing left. There was nothing left to focus on. It's actually the same as when you reach that goal. When people reach their goal and they don't have a bigger dream, then all of a sudden it's like, where are we going? And, it's like there's nothing to live for anymore. That's not good. We want to keep on going, to keep being positive, to keep being inspired, being inspirational for others. I mean, how amazing is that? So we talked about the impact it has on people's minds, on people's lives. And when I was talking about it and doing the training, I said, well, I wasn't expecting this. I mean, I've been talking so much about clarity that I was like, how does this work? But then I realized that clarity is also, well, yes, last week I talked about focus and simplicity, but yes, really thinking through about your dreams and what it is that's important for you, that's clarity too. And well, with everything that I've experienced and everything that I've done in the last couple of months, and also in the last couple of years, and also in the last decade, I think I have a better understanding than ever what clarity is about, what living in the moment is about, and especially making the most of life. And seeing some people out there who are actually doing it, that really is really inspiring. And it helped me realize once again that there are some things that I want to do. And well, if I get back in line with the thing that I want to do, and of course it can keep developing without being too distracted by other things, other shiny objects, then, you know, let's see where this ends up. So I already announced it a number of times that I was going to do Clarity Challenge again, but I am going to start this Monday. So please let other people know that they can join the Clarity Challenge. And then I'm going to make sure that there's a little handout or something, something fun. And this weekend, I'm going to take the time to actually prepare for the challenge. And yes, I still need to continue cleaning this up too. I said after this weekend, I want to take some pictures. Then I want to be done with the insurance company, knowing that it's all good again. And yeah, and then really take this opportunity to make it into this new version of me. So I already changed a lot, but now I want the surroundings around me to change as well. So it actually matches with who I am nowadays. And it also matches with what I actually said years ago that I wanted to do. Now, what I did mention, but maybe not specific enough, is the importance of other people, the importance of support. So when my friend came over, I basically only had to say, I don't think don't need this anymore. It was like, okay. And then she said, what do you want to do with it? I said, well, I'm sort of done with it. And now it's up to you to do something with it. So I don't have to make that final decision. So there's difference between that last act and that being the one to put something in a garbage bag or wherever I want to. I want some things to be in the right place, to end up in the right place. And I know that she will make sure that it actually ends up in the right place, and that makes all the difference. So talking to people, talking to you out there, also talking about all these things, it has given me so much clarity. So I want to put the emphasis on the importance of support, about speaking up, not being embarrassed, but actually reaching out to other people and say, hey, I need your help me. And well, sometimes help comes from a different direction than expected. So there could be new role models, but it could also be other friends instead of family members. So the ones who are closest to you, maybe you expect them to help you. But then, someone else steps up and says, okay, I'm going to help you out. And that's actually what happened. And there was no stress involved. Actually, these last couple of weeks, maybe months, they really have helped me to take things to the next level, to visualize, okay, so what is it that I want to do? What do I want it to look like? And now literally reattaching it back to the dream I used to have and still have, about getting people to a place where they actually can get their story out there, and also figuring out their mindsets and being able to change and transform those mindsets. So, well, that's my Friday Night Live for today. If you want to be coached, because you could use some clarity in your mind, then you know where to find me. Please reach out to me so I can support you on that part. If you do want to be coached, but you are not entirely sure just yet, then just watch what you can find, and just find Lady Lexi Speaks Up. So the cool thing is I actually have been verified now. So that's good. So I'm really happy about that. But apart from that, talk to people, write things down, get clarity for yourself. And like I said, it also always helps to talk to other people. So find a coach. If you can't find a coach, reach out to me and let's see what we can do together. But apart from that, there also will be the Clarity Challenge. So as soon as I have somewhere where you can register, I'll make sure that I post it. If it's not there, you can just find me somewhere on Instagram or on my website and just leave a comment, leave a message. Be specific about what you want. I don't like it when people say hi, and because they just want to talk about stuff which has nothing to do with coaching. But when you really need the support, for instance, when you've been scammed or you don't see any perspective anymore and you want to opt out, be there. Be there. Because I know what it's like to feel lonely and not feel heard and not see any perspective anymore. And I also know what it's like to actually get what you deserve and to turn your life around. And if I can do it, you can do it too.